Okay, good afternoon everyone and welcome to a Functional Skills Reform webinar from NCFE. We've got a lot of people attending today. I think we had over 200 registrations for this particular webinar and we've got a lot of material to cover in today's presentation. So we're going to make a start straight away with it being 1:15. Your hosts for today's webinar, myself, Dean Blewett, and David Redden from the curriculum team at NCFE. So the purpose and objectives of today's webinar is to reflect on some of the key changes regarding the subject content that was released by Ofqual in March for both English and Maths. We'll also be looking at a historic timeline of the key updates so far, as well as providing a timeline for any future developments. That'll be followed by some preparation tips and finally some advice on when centres will get sight of the new functional skills qualifications, and also what NCFE are going to be doing to assist your transition.
Okay. We have been discussing content changes and debating how these are going to be assessed for the best part of 18 months now. There was lots of opinions shared by a wide variety of people working in the sectors. Now the Department of Education Ofqual have provided us with the final versions of that content. Now is the time we come together to look at how we implement this. NCFE, along with other award organisations, will be spending the next few months putting together the content into a qualification format and looking to create the best possible qualification that will enhance learner skills in both English and Maths. Along the journey, we will also be supporting centres to upskill their staff and be fully prepared for the launch of the qualification in September 2019. This is the first step in moving forward together to bring the best possible learning experience for our learners. Excuse me. NCFE has also used centre and learner feedback to inform our products, and functional skills are no different. Over the legacy qualification, the feedback has enabled us to develop a 6-day results turnaround, free automated learner feedback, flexible entries, and free access to full skills initial assessment diagnostic tools. A lot of the feedback we have is already being used to inform the development of new functional skills, and we will be looking for customer input at various stages of development to help guide us to create the best possible functional skills qualification for you. During the webinar, there will be a series of stopping points allowing us to review any questions you may have. Feel free at any point during the webinar to type these in the box on the right-hand side of your screen, or alternatively, if you're using a mobile application, then you're able to press the screen and bring the question mark bar up. We will be monitoring the question box throughout the webinar, and we will be providing a full written response to all questions, which we'll share once the webinar is over.
In addition to that full list of Q&As, we'll also be emailing out the recording of the webinar and the slides as well, so that you can pass that on to the members of your team or use it for training purposes at a later date. So let's have a look at the full agenda for today's webinar. Okay, so we've got a few different sections. As mentioned, we're going to be looking at a variety of different things. So we've broken it down into several key stages. We're firstly going to look at the story so far. Then we're going to have a look at what you need to know and the outcomes of that. We're then going to go on to how are NCFE involved, what we're doing, what the next steps for you are as a centre, and also the preparation that you need to be doing as a centre before the new qualification kicks in.
Okay, so before we start, we're going to run a quick poll here just to get an idea how familiar everyone is and whether they've heard of the reform or if you're brand new to the reform content. So just go and bring up a poll on screen asking, what do you know about the functional skills reform? So there's 5 options: everything, quite a bit, you know it's happening, not a lot, or nothing. This will just give you an indication on how people are informed on the reform so far.
Okay, that should have launched now, so if you can just select one of the appropriate boxes. Okay, just a few more seconds. I've got about just over 90% of people have participated in that poll. Right, 97% of people have voted now. So I'm just going to close that poll now. Thanks for your participation, and I'll share the results of that with everyone now. Okay, so quite a spread of different results. So we've got 3% of people think they know everything that there is on the reform, 7% nothing. Most of us seem to be within that sort of interquartile range territory of being in that median percentage. So not a lot. I think the second most popular at 32% and 42% that the actual reform is happening. So I'll take that poll down and then we're going to go back through obviously the process of the agenda items. So the functional skills reform then. The reform qualifications, as David mentioned earlier, are due to come into effect on the 1st of September 2019. That will mean that registrations on the current version of functional skills, or what will be known as a legacy functional skills qualifications, will be the 31st of August 2019. The qualifications will be run at the same time, but that will only take place for 1 year. At the end of that year, if there's still learners registered on the legacy functional skills who haven't achieved on that qualification, they'll need to be transferred onto the new version of functional skills by the 1st of September 2020. As alluded to in the previous statement, most organisations are going to be running those qualifications at the same time, and there will be a little bit of crossover. This means centres, you're going to have administration processes already in place, as well as effective timetabling to ensure that learners won't fall under that radar.
Okay, so on screen there, we have got the new purpose for the functional skills qualification. I'm not going to read it out word for word, you can read through it, but we have highlighted the key areas that you need to be aware of. So the content is still going to be relevant to the workplace. So what that means is it's still going to be that branch of generalized topics, no good just contextualizing into one sector. When learners go through any stage of apprenticeships, they are going to go in a sector. They may not have a job for life, so you need to ensure that they've got relevant skills across all workplaces. You also need to provide underpinning knowledge. You'll hear the use of the underpinning skills and knowledge throughout the discussion today. We'll cover that in more detail later on, just what the explanation of underpinning skills are. You need to apply these in different content, like I mentioned before. It's no longer going to have a job for life. You can contextualize, but we'll encourage you to contextualize in the beginning and then wean your learners off and give them a broader understanding of maths and English in a larger context. Also need to be a foundation for progression. As in all education now, you're looking to progress the learners from levels and also progression into employment or further technical education. So whilst you may start entry level, you've got to be looking through to level 1 and 2, you're looking to get them onto that next level, so the delivery is going to be based around that area. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit now about the thematic review. Looking at where functional skills have come from, so the story so far almost. So back in 2015, Ofqual did a thematic review of all award organisations delivering functional skills. All award organisations had to submit their qualifications, their assessments, how they mark the assessments, how they moderate the assessments, and a big review was done. From that review, Ofqual released a report, and one of the key things from that is functional skills was not broken, but it could be improved. They also recognised that functional skills in its current format had a brand, but it wasn't a strong brand awareness. Employers and parents still knew about GCSEs, but they didn't know enough about functional skills, so it needed a stronger brand awareness. Originally, they looked at creating a new name for functional skills, but I think I speak for most when thankfully they stuck to functional skills. We've had basic skills, we've had adult skills, we've had key skills. There's only so many skills you can go through. We're settled on functional skills, and I think it's important to keep that brand name. They decided that the quality of assessment materials needed to be improved, that it didn't create enough quality in the assessment of the functional skills. There was too much variation in between awarding organisations. Also, the risk of malpractice and maladministration needed to be reduced. Ofqual felt administered too high a level of malpractice. I know they've done separate papers on malpractice, but as part of functional skills being externally assessed, it is a high-risk qualification. Also, standard setting procedures and evaluating if qualifications meet user requirements need to be improved. It felt like at the end of the day, what functional skills were created for wasn't actually delivering, and it needed to be improved on that end product. We also wanted functional skills qualifications to become more valid and reliable. Before I mentioned the difference between one organisation, a lot of what you've heard in the consultation time is all around comparability, making functional skills more comparable. There's a lot of reasons why it wasn't comparable, but there's a lot of work going on in the future to reduce the to improve that comparability between one organisation. I felt that also assessment needed to provide more real-life context and more effectively. So, as you're aware, functional skills do use scenarios, do use real-life situations, but it was felt that some of those scenarios weren't realistic in real life, they weren't relating to learners, and an area that needed to be improved. Also, they decided that students need to be able to demonstrate greater breadth and depth of skills that are too limited to how much learners had to demonstrate in the final assessment. So in some of them, on one organisation improved, but Ofqual as well have recognised that they need to improve, and Department of Education as well. In particular relation to the brand awareness, they're going to be doing a lot more work on promoting functional skills and improving it as a quality product. What that looks like yet we don't know. We're still waiting for the department to issue how they're going to do that, but I do believe that's in discussion as we speak. So we've broken down the timeline of events into 7 stages. Obviously, the first stage, as I mentioned, was the thematic review of functional skills, and that took place in January 2015. Just before that was released in December 2015, Ofqual got all the one organisation together and expressed that we needed to work more closely together. Obviously, the findings of the reports were starting to come out, and the comparability between the one organisations was not to the satisfaction of Ofqual. So voluntarily, the one organisations who deliver functional skills all came together to create a federation of one body functional skills group. So this group has been together since December 2015 and contained all the Wharton organisations delivering functional skills, and we've been meeting on a regular basis since December 2015, discussing functional skills, discussing how we can work better together, and also the involvement in the consultation and the review of the new functional skills. In January 2016, the Department of Education commissioned a full consultation of functional skills. They employed a consultation outfit, Pipe Tate Consultation, and the Education Training Foundation to carry out this consultation. This was a public consultation that covered the whole of England and targeted learners, employers, centres, one organisation, and even parents of learners. So it was trying to capture as much information from everyone as possible. They did a couple of consultations where first they were going to look at the adult numeracy and literacy standards, and then onto the functional skills English and maths criteria. In January 2017, the ETF produced the first standards for English and maths. This was the very first draft, and everyone was invited to have a look at the draft and consult back on the criteria that ETF had drawn up. They then went away with that feedback, and they then worked out another second version of that draft, which went live on September 2017 for consultation. So Department of Education then ran a consultation on the content, on the functional skills criteria, and at the same time, Ofqual also consulted on the regulations and guidance. So Ofqual look at how the assessment is going to work, how they're going to regulate the one organisation, and the Department of Education looked at the subject context separately. Again, this was a public consultation. There were several events around the country ran by Ofqual, and we, as a one organisation, encouraged all our customers to get involved in that. That all closed at the end of 2017, and then the Department of Education finally released the subject content for functional skills English and Maths in February 2018. And this is the content that will now be used to deliver the new functional skills qualification. If you haven't already seen this content, I strongly suggest that you download the content and make yourself familiar with it, because that's going to be the form of what one organisation is going to create the assessment with, and also what you need to be delivering in your classrooms and your lessons. In July 2018, Ofqual released the guidance and conditions for the run of the new functional skills qualification. What this is the guidance that one organisation has to adhere to when creating the external and internal assessment for functional skills qualification. So obviously DFE have released the subject content, Ofqual have released the guidance, and with these two documents, all of one organisation will be using them to create the new functional skills qualification. Okay. In charge of all this is Anne Milton. Anne Milton is in charge of the functional skills reform, and she set out the government position in relation to reform functional skills qualification. So she expects the new functional skills qualification to provide reliable evidence of learners' achievement against demanding but appropriate content that is relevant to the workplace. Assessment of learners' underpinning knowledge as well as their ability to apply this in different contexts, a foundation for progress into further studies for employment. So that Anne Milton clearly stating the purpose of the qualification. Not too different from the old functional skills, but a lot more detailed and a lot more wording there. You can see key words such as demanding but appropriate. Also, underpinning knowledge is once again used. So Anne Milton indicated that Ofqual's approach to regulating functional skills qualifications should take into account that in some contexts they play a part in the government accountability system. So again, this is interesting for functional skills. It's going to be applied alongside, say in terms of GCSE, it's going to be used as a front-running qualification and a very important qualification. She also confirmed that the qualifications will go live in September 2019, and that the size of functional skills will not change significantly. We should retain a pass-fail grading system, and employers and learners should have confidence in relation to the comparability between these qualifications, irrespective of the one organisation and the year in which they were taken. So three key things there. So obviously the size of the legacy functional skills qualification is 45 GLH. Anne Milton clearly stating there that should not change significantly. We do expect the GLH to increase, but that hasn't been finalised yet. From personal opinion, I imagine you're going to be looking at another 10-15 hours under that GLH, but that, like I say, still has not been decided. The pass-fail grading system, that hasn't changed. There would talk whether they would go to the new GCSE model of 1 to 9, or whether they would have a distinction merit, etc. But the felt is functional skills is a functional qualification. You're either functional or you're not, so it remains pass and fail. And those are the wordings that all AOs will have to use in the future. Also, once again, the talk about the comparability between the qualifications and the one organisation. So the increased responsibility on one organisation to work together to ensure that their functional skills are all comparable. So it shouldn't be too much difference between the different AOs. Okay, so what we want now is to just have a quick poll to find out how you, the audience, are feeling about the functional skills reform. We've obviously been involved in consultation. There's a lot of talk going on about the functional skills. So we just want to try and grab the current mood out in the sectors. So there's going to be 5 options. It's going to be very positive, undecided, worried, very worried. So if you can just take a few minutes to have a look at the options and give us your decision. Okay, so everyone's starting to make their decisions now. Got about 87% in so far. Give another 10 seconds. Okay, we're going to share the results now. Come on the screen. So 51% are undecided. So obviously sitting on the fence there, you're not sure if it's a good thing or not. A good thing, there's 36% are positive and 9% very positive. That's good. There's been a lot of discussion and a lot of debate around the new functional skills, so it's always hard to judge how people are viewing it. But the fact that so many people are online here today are viewing it as a positive thing is a really good thing for us, and I think it'll be a good thing for learners. So obviously we've talked about the content, we've talked about the regulations guidance. You may wonder where you can access these information. Dean mentioned before, we're going to be emailing out these slides, and within the slides we've hyperlinked where you can access these documents from. If you can't wait until you get the slides, you can go to Ofqual's website and search for the new functional skills content. You should be able to find them quite easily. So like I say, the plain white front cover, those are from the Department of Education. Those are actually the functional skills subject content that will break down into explicit detail just what will be contained at each level. Ofqual, the purple front cover, they are how Ofqual are expecting the functional skills qualification to be assessed. Okay. We're going to move now into the actual key changes of these contents. So first we're going to start off with English at entry level. The content is still going to be split into 3 areas which all need to be achieved to create one certificate. So it's still going to be writing, reading, speaking, listening, and communication. There will be 3 assessments. At entry level, it's going to be internally assessed still, and you will have to achieve each element, each component in order to achieve a certificate. So key changes. First one that probably those of you who've been aware of the change, the consultation will be aware of, is that the structured teaching of phonics is to be delivered at entry level. Now it's important to note that this won't be assessed in the final assessment. However, we are expecting centres to deliver using the phonics technique. How this is going to look like, how it's going to be checked by one organisation, still up in the air. We are currently looking at the qualifications and how that looks, but we will be looking to support you in delivering phonics. So please try not to be too alarmed at this moment. We will get through this together. The spelling assessment will be at entry level only, so that within both entry level 1 writing, entry level 2 writing, and entry level 3 writing, there will be a spelling test for your learners. This test will consist of a test of 10 words out of a list of 100. The subject contestant has got all the words that will be tested at each level, so it's important to make sure that yourself and your learners are familiar with all these words. They aren't difficult words, and not words put in there to be challenging. They're everyday words that learners should be able to spell. Again, how this will be assessed, we don't know yet. There's obviously scope for the assessor reading the words out. It could be a multiple choice. How this works, we're still working on that, but we will let you know as soon as possible. SPARC, or spelling, punctuation and grammar, will be assessed for 50 to 70% at entry level. This isn't any real change from the current functional skills, so again, heavy emphasis on spelling, punctuation and grammar. You will be allowed to contextualise your assessment. This is currently allowed but not heavily promoted, but there is expectation to show a bit more exemplars on how this will happen. Speaking, listening, and communication will be assessed for more than 1 task, so it will not just be 1 task for speaking and listening, there will be at least 2 tasks for speaking and listening. Another key change is no dictionaries or spell check equipment will be enabled for writing assessment. This is quite a big change, and you will have to ensure that your learners are able to spell without the use of an additional aid. In terms of the assessment time, the overall assessment time has been provided as a minimum and a maximum, so at least 1.5 hours and not more than 2 hours assessment time over the 3 components. And the last point on that is no spiky profile allowed. Just to be clear what spiky profile is, it's trying, at the minute sometimes you can have a learner achieve one of the components at a higher level. You will still get a certificate for the level they registered for, but on the component summary it will detail that that achievement was done at a level higher. From now on, for entry level, all components will have to be set at the same. So if you're doing entry level 2, the learner has to achieve each assessment at entry level 2. You cannot achieve one of them at entry level 3. Okay. Moving on for
some content changes. So David mentioned before about phonics and spelling tests being new to entry-level assessments. You can find some really detailed requirements of this within the subject content guide from page 23 onwards. So earlier we brought up obviously an image of each of the content guides. They should be hyperlinked to the actual guide, so you can go back after this presentation, have a look at the words being assessed. Just to give you a brief extract of what's contained in there. It's going to look a little bit like that. So you can see then that there's several parts to it. It can look quite scary if you are a vocational staff member or a non-specialist. Looking at that, obviously certain parts of words are underlined. Now that's just because that's how to pronounce a letter, and the sound of the letter is in the right-hand column. At NCFE, we will be looking to simplify these lists and provide just a list of all the spelling requirements. As David mentioned, there's plenty of words there to be assessed, so none of our qualifications will be sort of wait and guess what's going to come up. But again, these are the underpinning skills, and these are common words that would be used in everyday scenarios, and learners are meant to be adept at spelling those words. So might be a little bit of training there in future on those spelling lists.
So moving on to level 1 and 2, again, the 3 areas which need to be achieved are reading, writing and speaking and listening. That has not changed. Reading and writing external assessment will be externally assessed, and speaking and listening will be an internal assessment. So no change there. One key thing to mention about the phonics, obviously it's only got to be delivered at entry level. It won't be assessed, but just if you're only running level 1 and 2 qualification, be aware that you will still need to have an awareness of phonics, because if you've got learners come through from entry level used to the delivery being in phonics, then you will need to have that awareness and carry that phonics teaching on for the level 1 and 2. So it is very much a case of don't just think that phonics is only for entry level, so you don't have to worry at level 1 and 2. You will still need that awareness at level 1 and 2. So key changes. SPAG will be assessed for 40 to 45%. It says entry level there. Sorry, that's a little mistake there. It will be 40 to 45% for level 1 and 2. This hasn't changed from the current one. Originally, it was down to 30 to 35%, but after the consultation, Ofqual has now increased it back to 40 to 45%. So again, as you can see, learners will need to be able to spell, punctuate, and have good grammar in order to achieve their writing assessments. There will be no spelling test for level 1 and 2. You don't have to worry, that's only at entry level. Contextualization will be allowed for speaking, listening, communication. Again, this is currently available, but also not widely used at level 1 and 2. But again, a one organisation will be having to make more exemplar requirements for the level 1 and 2 assessment, showing how you can do this. NCFE has already started doing this. If any of you attended the delivery day events that we've run, we do cover contextualization in there, and we'll be continuing to give you more support on how to do this. Speaking and listening now is going to be more structured. It's going to come as an assessment. It's not going to be a free choice, quite open like it has been. Again, those doing NCFE in the legacy qualification will be familiar with the fact that reset the task, reset the assessment and the scenario, and this is how it's going to move into the new functional skills. So it will be guidance that you will have to have a presentation or a formal discussion, and it will form like an assessment. You can't just pick a topic and stand up and talk about it. It'll also come with past descriptors. Again, at NCFE, currently we have almost a mark scheme giving you an indication of what is a pass and what not a pass. This is now going to be a bit more explicit, and they will come with the assessment to give you more guidance on how to judge whether a learner has achieved or not. Like entry level, no dictionary or spell check equipment will be enabled for writing assessment. So learners won't have any access to a dictionary. They will have to be able to spell words off their own back. And again, that goes back down to teaching. There's going to be a lot more emphasis on the spelling of words. The overall assessment time, again, rather than just set one time off, calls left it open for one organisation to decide. So minimum of 2 hours and maximum of 3 hours over all three components. So if you would do a maximum of 3 hours, it could be 1 hour for reading, 1 hour for writing, 1 hour for speaking, listening, and communication. We haven't decided how that's going to look like yet. We haven't created the assessment. Once we've created the assessment, we will allocate the appropriate length of time within that time frame. And again, like we talked about for entry level, there is no spiky profile allowed. You will not be able to sit a speaking and listening assessment at level 2 and have a learner sit level 1 reading and writing. You will have to achieve at all levels. And that's a big change.
All right, okay, so that was the English key content changes. We're going to have a look at a few mapping documents and a few moments when we look at the assessment criteria, but we'll just go through the key content changes for maths as well. So we'll start with entry level. As with the current qualification, then the content's going to be split into 3 subject areas. So that's going to be using numbers in the number system, using common measures, shape and space, and finally, handling information and data. So some of the key changes to the maths content include the addition of a non-calculator section for all levels of maths, including entry level. So the assessment will be split so that 25% of the overall marks will be allocated to non-calculator skills and 75% to calculator skills. So far, there'll not be a separate grading for the non-calculator, and there'll be no stipulation there that learners will need to successfully achieve on both sections in order to pass the qualification. So a learner could achieve if they didn't pass the non-calculator section, but they then got enough marks from the calculator skills section to pass the qualification. Initial discussions regarding the subject content indicate that we'll be opting for one paper split into 2 sections. So that'll be made up of a calculator, then a non-calculator section, or vice versa, rather than having 2 separate papers. The operational function of this is yet to be finalised. There's going to be an increased focus on problem solving skills as well. That's across all levels. So at entry level, that's described as simple. So 75% of the content now is going to be based on those problem-solving skills, with the other 25% allocated to underpinning skills. So by problem-solving skills, entry-level students are expected to be able to use the knowledge and skills based on the content to solve a simple problem and obtain a solution. So a simple problem is one which requires working through one step or process there. And as I say, 75% of the content will now be assessed on that. We've also got some more descriptive guidelines on what content should be assessed. So Ofqual have been a lot more specific about what should be assessed. The overall assessment times, the minimum is going to be 1 hour 15 minutes and the maximum will be 1 hour 45 minutes. Okay, we'll have a look for level 1 and level 2 as well. So similarly as entry level, it'll be split into the 3 different sections as before. We are provisionally looking at having slightly more weight, I think, for using numbers in the number system, because that will reflect obviously its use within the workplace and further education. But it'll be reasonably split across those 3 components. As with entry level, there'll be a non-calculator section for 25% of the content. It'll be a single exam. At level 1, the problem-solving skills are described as straightforward, and at level 2, they're described as complex. So at level 1, it's expected that students will be able to address individual problems, some of which draw upon a combination of any 2 of the mathematical content areas. And that will require students to make connections between those content areas. So straightforward problems are defined as being able to work through one step or process as well as being able to work through multi-step problems. So you can see that jump there from that entry-level problem solving. At level 2, it's expected that learners are able to do the same as level 1, apart from it changes for 3 mathematical content areas. So rather than just 2, it's now 3. The description of problem solving has also been open to interpretation in the past, but again, very much like the actual assessment criteria, Ofqual have given some specific guidance as to what's expected in these types of tasks. You'll be able to find that in the subject content guide again. So problem solving includes skills such as solving tasks that have little or no scaffolding, also solving tasks that provide for multiple representations, so things like using a sketch or a diagram, as well as calculations. Also, if the information isn't given in a mathematical form or a mathematical language, so there's a real need there to interpret, say, for instance, a real-life world context. There's even more further guidance, obviously, on that as well. I think there's around about 12 different areas where it describes that problem solving. As with entry level, there's also more descriptive guidelines on what the content should be assessed. On that note as well, the content's much more descriptive, so things such as, it was described as, say, comparing fraction, decimals and percentages in the past. It's given further meaning by saying things like learners must compare decimals up to 3 decimal places for level 1. So it's a lot more descriptive into how much detail we need to go into. So on a positive note, really, the new qualifications and the content are a lot more descriptive than before, which as an AO, it'll make it easier for us to create that comparable assessment. And as a tutor, that'll enable you to have more targeted delivery, and it'll be exactly clear what you need to teach your learners. Finally, on level 1 and level 2, the assessment times, the minimum is going to be 1 hour 45 minutes and the maximum is going to be 2 hour 30 minutes. Okay, so those are the key content changes for Maths and English. What we're going to do now is we're going to have a look at a bit of a case study. So in a few months, we're going to be releasing a mapping document which is going to describe exactly how the current legacy qualification content actually maps over to the new qualification. So for an example, we're going to look at a level 1 English reading to start with, then we're going to go into some level 1 maths as well. So this is a current legacy qualification content, so we can see there we've got 5 different assessment criteria descriptors. The new content looks more like this, so we can see there we've actually now got 8 different content descriptors, and we can see the increased specificity of that subject content and the amount of detail that it actually goes in there. One of the big things we noticed from the curriculum team is we've been talking to customers already. One of the things we quickly identified was everyone wants to know how that content maps over from the legacy to the reform qualification. This mapping document that we're creating is really going to highlight the key changes, including the new content and revised content, and that will allow you as centres to make those key changes and decisions regarding that curriculum planning. I think it's important to note at this stage as well that maths is still maths, English is still English. So what you're currently teaching won't change. So fractions are still going to be fractions, spelling's still going to be spelling. However, it's just going to be a more targeted approach as to what's assessed. You'll notice from this guide then, or this initial mapping case study, it's a little bit like our amplification guide. So if you're already familiar with those, from our current functional skills, you'll notice the more descriptive nature of the criteria. NCFE is going to continue to update those documents and reflect the new criteria within that. And that's just to ensure that the exact assessment style for NCFE is going to be captured in the documents. Okay, so a lot more detail there. We're going to go down just into when we're talking about revised meaning and obviously new content. This is also from level 1 English reading, and I think this really highlights the changes there in the descriptiveness of that assessment criteria. So the legacy qualification content says C was utilise information contained in text. In the reform qualification content, we can see that's now been split into 3 separate stages with a lot more description on what's required at those stages. Point 15 is particularly important, and these are the types of points we're going to be highlighting to centres. So point 15 states, infer from images meanings not explicit in the accompanying text. and understanding organisation and structural features. Now, the inferring from images, meanings not explicit in the accompanying text, that used to be a level 2 descriptor, so that was only for level 2 English reading. That's now been brought down into level 1. We're going to be making those key sort of changes, those new topics, those revised meanings. We're going to make that really, really clear within this mapping document. Okay, right, we're going to have a look at a maths one as well and compare how that matches up. So this is a level 1 maths case study for number. We can see there we've got the legacy qualification on the left hand side, and that's got 7 different parts to it. The reform qualification standards are again increased in the amount of specificity of that subject content. And we can see there just the first statement there, it says read, write and order large numbers up to 1 million. So it's been really specific about how far you need to go. The example before about comparing fractions, decimals, percentages, that was quite a general statement before. You might have one AO who does it up to 2 decimal places. You might have another AO that does it up to 3 decimal places. The content now is really, really descriptive to allow that comparability across the board. We can see the revised meaning, so this is the point that I'm getting at in that previous statement, that comparing common fractions, decimals and percentages. So maths tutor, you can obviously interpret that in a number of different ways, and you can go into lots and lots of detail. You could be thinking along the lines of, is it going to be mixed numbers, improper fractions, same with decimals, how many different places, percentages. Again, it's very, very vague actually what's wanted there. It's really, really specific now, so we can see the reform qualification content. It specifies that it wants you to be able to compare common fractions and mixed numbers at level 1. It also lets you know that you're going to have to be able to find fractions of a whole amount. And then finally, that you're going to have to be able to compare decimals up to 3 decimal places. And that's going to be across the board that everyone has to assess in that way now. So as a tutor, I think it's a really, really positive thing that now you've got a thorough set of guidelines that you need to know, and you know what to teach to in those guidelines. There's also a little bit new content as well, so I'm just going to bring up the next slide. So this is the legacy qualification content, is to use simple formulae expressed in words for 1 or 2 step operations. The reform qualification content references several things. So point 5 is the same obviously as the legacy, but there's now also point 6 and point 7. So point 6 states that you need to be able to calculate the squares of 1-digit and 2-digit numbers. Point 7 says you need to follow the order of precedence of operators. Now point 7 is really making it clear within this that learners need to know what BIDMAS is, and it's a specific reference to that skill. In the past, similar to what we mentioned before about decimal places, it might have been a bit confusion whether one AO actually examines that, another AO doesn't. It's very, very thorough there that all AOs will have to at some point assess that BIDMAS. Point 6 is actually new qualification content, and this is the type of qualification content that we want to make very, very clear to yourselves. So calculating the squares of 1-digit and 2-digit numbers, we're talking about things like 6 squared. So referencing that means 6 times 6, or that's equal to 36. And obviously it's been really specific there, not just saying that learners need to be able to calculate squares, it's saying that they need to be able to do it for 1-digit numbers like 6, and also 2-digit numbers like 11. And we can see there the 2 examples of that. Now in that mapping document, it's going to be abundantly clear exactly what the revised content means and exactly what the new content is as well for that. And as I say, that's going to be coming up in the next few months.
Okay, so we've gone through a lot there so far. We just want to pause for a second just to do a quick question and answer sections. So take this time now. You've got a question box on the right hand side. If you type in your questions, let us know what you're thinking. Let us know if you've got any questions about what's been covered so far. So the first one's come through, how soon will we have access to the mapping document? As Dean mentioned, we haven't got a specific date. We're still in the process of putting it together, but it will be in the next couple of months. We also had someone asking where can we download new criteria from. Like I say, within the presentation, there is hyperlink to the document, and you can also get it off Qual's site. Currently, entry-level assessment can be split over 2 days as long as the overall time is maintained. Is this still the case? That's something we'll have to read through. No final decisions have been made yet. Obviously, we've only just getting the off-call content from end of June. We've got to have a look now and develop that assessment and decide whether that's going to be allowed. We will let you know as soon as possible.
Yeah, we've had Christine asking what the upskill plans for delivery staff is as well. We're going to go through in the next part of the presentation exactly what NCFE are planning to do, the workshops that we're going to put on, delivery days that we're going to be participating in as well, and exactly letting you know exactly what we're going to do to help you train your staff for these new qualifications.
When will new samples be available? Again, we'll cover the next stages, but the first the first site centre we'll get will be between January and March next year. Obviously, all award organisations have to go through an approval process with Ofqual to get permission to run these qualifications. That doesn't open until October, so until then, no one can clearly state when we're going to be able to share sample materials. However, we will be doing our utmost to prepare it appropriately.
Yeah. Asked, will the presentation be sent to our emails or can we access it online? So the presentation itself, the slides will be sent via email. The video of the presentation will be too large to send via email, so we'll be uploading that to YouTube afterwards. Okay.
Okay. Alison's asked, are you on target for release for September? Like I say, we've still got to go through the process of getting approved, like all other one organisations. We will be on target for September, but there's a number of hurdles that we have to get through before we get to that stage. Still very early on, like I say, literally only since the end of June have we had the full content. So we are now working on the development of these qualifications in order to get approved by Ofqual. Obviously, all being well, we will be on target for September.
Okie dokie then. So we've had quite a few questions there, probably more than enough to see us through until the end of the day, to be honest. What we're going to do is we'll take a written response to the rest of those questions and we'll email that out with the presentation that we'll share via email. Okay.
Okay. So obviously we've had questions there. We'll cover quite a bit. At the start, we asked you how positive, how you feel about functional skills. We're now just going to do another poll now, just to find out how you now feel about functional skills reform. Are you still positive? Are you undecided? This is what was said. Scared you? Hopefully not. But just to give an indication, just how much what you feel following what we've informed you with.
Yeah. So that poll should have launched now. So if we get your responses on that, please. Something very positive at the moment. 60% of votes. At 85%, so we'll give you another 10 seconds to get those responses in.
Okay, that's got 90% there. Okay, we'll share the results again of that poll. So we're looking at 19%, it's very positive. 55% positive, so I think we've increased the positivity in the room. That's pleasing to hear. I would be a bit worried if it went down into the worried and very worried section. So hopefully we've had a chance to, this is a positive thing. Ultimately, these are going to be better qualifications in teaching and delivering English and maths. It'll enable your learner to gain better skills and increase their chances in a working environment. So, you know, we will be approaching this very positively. It is an important change and the improvement can only benefit us. So that's good to hear. Right, moving on now. Just the next stage, just some of the questions before there, linked into what's happening, what are the time frames. Up here is a chart showing you the time frame. So at the start of July, Ofqual released the conditions and guidance for new functional skills qualification. So that's what you've got, a complete qualification now. So all awarding organisations have pounced onto them and started cracking on, started working hard on how our assessments are going to look like. So you've got that July to October period where all awarding organisations will be creating a new functional skills qualification and get ready to submit for approval with Ofqual. This takes place in the middle of October. Ofqual will be evaluating each AO's offer. We will have to submit an assessment strategy. We will have to submit sample materials, sample mark schemes, and learn resources against the criteria, and Ofqual will make that decision whether we've met that or not. In November, Ofqual is going to advise awarding organisations if they've been successful or not, and the resubmission windows will open for those who have not been successful. When this will be released, this information be released to centres, that's not a decision we can make. Ofqual will decide that data. However, at some point between January and March, centres will get first sight of new functional skills qualification. So that includes the sample materials, sample mark scheme, learn resources, etc. And then September 2019, the first teachings of the new functional skills qualification will begin. They haven't set a date, but I suspect it will be 1st of September. And the old legacy qualification will end registration on the 31st of August. Now, it's important at this point, I think, to stress as well that the changeover from legacy to the new qualification, the temptation might be coming in August to register all your learners on the legacy qualification. Be mindful that you will only have 12 months to complete them learners. Those learners have not achieved by September 2020. There is no provision to transfer over from the legacy to the new. You will have to start again. But on a positive note, any learner that comes through the system will be new to functional skills. They won't know any difference if you're starting on the new functional skills or the old functional skills. And in terms of the maths, the non-calculator assessment, that's already involved in the GCSE anyway, so it won't be a huge surprise to any young learner coming through. So, you know, there is a lot of scope there. So, well, that's the timeline. Like I say, you can look at that. We hope to be able to give you some news around Christmas time, a nice little Christmas present. But until we get final clarification from Ofqual what the evaluation process looks like, we won't be able to confirm. Now it's looking a bit in NCFE's involvement. So how has NCFE been involved? As I mentioned, obviously as a AO delivering functional skills, we were involved in thematic review. We went through the whole review, we assisted them, and we came out quite well in comparison. We didn't have any major action to our assessments, although we did have some actions, but we contributed a lot. Obviously, we're an active member of the FAB group. We regularly attend the meetings. There's not many that we don't attend, and we have full involvement in what the discussions have been about, including discussions around the consultation. Obviously, we contributed to the ETF consultation. We contributed to Ofqual and DFE consultation. We also held reforms like this one, webinars like this one, where we've informed the customers and encouraged customers to get involved. Even as a curriculum team, we go around a lot of centres and do a lot of events around the country, and in these events we're constantly talking about the reform. It is slightly worrying that a lot of people aren't aware of these reforms, so I urge you today, after this webinar finishes, to go and make sure all your colleagues, all your peers, all your connections are aware of the reform taking place, because there's no getting away with this. This is happening. It's not going to be like key skills back in the day where it got extended and got extended year after year. This is happening. These dates are final, so you need to be prepared as early as possible for this. We will be running events across the country, prepare centres for the changes. Someone asked before how we're going to support you. We've got some events coming up in August, September. After that, we will be doing specific workshops based around entry-level English, entry-level maths, speaking and listening, doing standardisation events, and these will all be around the new reform. we've been prepared for this. Like I say, we've been involved for a lot of months, a lot of years now with the functional skills reform. And only a couple of weeks ago, NCFE launched some new learning resources, delivery resources for functional skills. These resources being made with the reform in mind. So we've used the criteria that were given to us in February, and we've created these resources. So the new resources that have come out with NCFE that are available now are suitable for new reform. So you don't have to go away and recreate new resources. We've already done that for you. We're also going to be going and doing events to offer curriculum support centre to help you plan, help you make key changes to your curriculum and where you need to upskill your staff and just in an advisory role almost to make sure you understand what needs to be done. With this in mind, like I mentioned, NCFE always been asking centres throughout the journey, what do you need? I mentioned earlier about some of the stuff we've created from feedback. Again, this is your opportunity now. Tell us what you need training on. What do you want us to do when we go forward?
So the poll should be multiple choice, and you'll be able to select more than one. If you have any other specific requests that's not mentioned within the 5 bullet points, could you just type them into the question box, and all responses will be considered afterwards?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you know, this won't be your last chance to say as well. We'll regularly get in contact with you, asking for your feedback, for your opinions.
So there's a lot of demand for the training on phonics, as well as the workshops on delivery of maths and English.
Yeah. Good enough. Okay, like I say, we will take this information away. We will use this to cater our events for the demand. So that's good to know that we're on the right track, that workshops are something that's of particular interest. Obviously, phonics is going to be a new thing for a lot of people. We will look at doing events on that. I didn't mention before, but I'll mention now that the Education Training Foundation will be putting together some phonics training as well on behalf of the Department of Education. That was one of the requirements following consultation around the content.
So just some things now just to consider before we finish the webinar. So things that you could be doing in advance, so a little bit of reform preparation at this stage. So the first thing really to consider are your current resources fit for purpose. So I mentioned obviously we've got the subject content that's available now, that's hyperlinked in this presentation. As well, the map and document will be ready in the next few months. Now it will be worth, obviously, once those 2 documents have been put together and you've got that available, having a look and a review of your current resources. Will there be resources that need to be dropped down from level 2 to level 1? Or there's some resources that need to be refined slightly because of changes or more sort of specific guidelines on that particular topic. So that's definitely something you could be doing now with the subject content, and when a map and document comes out, that's definitely a needs must really. Also, there'll probably be a need to review your internal quality processes. Often with being new qualification, how your IQA, your assessors, your tutors, that'll have to change. You'll have to have a higher sampling process, for example. So you'll need to have a look at your whole quality approach, particularly for the maths level 1 and 2 assessments. If it is split in between two assessments, how that's invigilated, etc. Obviously, once the new regulation come out, you can have a look at that and see how that works. The third thing is, does your current timetable accommodate the new requirements? So things such as, does the suggested delivery model, so if you do 3 hours a week, are you still able to deliver those new guided learning hours within that time frame? As well as also balancing between teachers teaching on the legacy qualification and the new qualification. I imagine for some members of staff, that's going to be quite confusing if they deliver both types of qualification. So it's how you're going to manage that within your own centre. Are you going to have specific teachers that lead the way on the new functional skills qualification, or are you going to wrap up the legacy qualification as soon as possible? And that kind of leads on to the next one. Do you have a plan for moving learners onto the new qualifications? Obviously, it's going to be tough to run both the legacy and the new one together. What is your plan? Are you going to
have a cut-off point date for registering learners? Are you going to do it at August? Are you going to continue registering learners after September 2019? You need to have a think about this. You know, it might make sense to register a lot of learners onto the legacy qualification to you, but if then you're mixing a lot of learners with the new one and the legacy one, it could lead to confusion in delivery. So you need to think about that.
Or staff up to date with the new requirements. So obviously as a department, that's coming together, that's reviewing this maybe presentation, it's reviewing your own presentations. It might be where you schedule an afternoon, say, just to look through that subject content and map it over. Your scheme of work is going to have to be adjusted. So talked before obviously about your timetable, but specifically those scheme of works that you're currently delivering are going to have to change. And it's trying to make sure all staff are up to date with those changes and that staff haven't missed out certain sections. I think working together as a department to review those changes is really, really important on this one.
Also, are all departments prepared? Obviously, we'll focus this from a delivery point of view, but your exam team, your administration team, they are going to need to know about this as well. We're going to have to be thinking about registrations and entries onto assessment as well as delivery. So, you know, if you are running legacy and new qualifications, you're going to have to make sure you're entering them on the right qualifications, you're giving them the right external assessment paper. All the teams are going to have to be up to date on this.
Right, so the next thing really, we've mentioned about the amount of support NCFE are offering. The next support that we're offering are delivery training days. David mentioned these earlier, taking place at the end of August and also the start of September. So throughout the next academic session, NCFE is going to be touring the road again for these specific days. The events are going to take place in Newcastle, Leeds. They'll take place at the end of August. Then at the start of September, we'll be touring Manchester, Birmingham, London and Southampton. The training is going to be a great chance to obviously meet subject experts and like-minded practitioners, so sharing ideas about things like the reform or current knowledge of the current qualification. The training day is looking to cover topics such as standardising the internal assessments for entry level, sharing good practice on the speaking, listening, communication, contextualising assessments, and also delivering English and maths at level 1 and level 2 by using effective planning and intervention resources. If you're interested in any of these events, you can highlight your interest by answering within the question box. There'll also be a follow-up link sent via the email afterwards, which contains your presentation. The agenda and the confirmation of the venues is going to be published at a closer date to the event. But if you'd like any more information, please don't hesitate to contact myself or David after the presentation.
Okay. That about concludes it. I think we've just about got it in on time. There's still a couple of minutes for questions. If anyone's got any further questions, we'll have a look and see if we can answer them. If not, we will send further answer to the question already. Alison's asked if we can unregister learners from legacy qualifications in September 2019 and transfer them to new qualifications. There's going to be no transfer over. You can internally you'll be able to withdraw learners from legacy and re-register them for new ones, but you won't be able to transfer any achievement over. Someone's asking, can we start learners before September 1st, 2020 on the new qualification? Yes, you can start on the start of September 2019. But you have to, any legacy qualifications have to be complete by September 2020. Cassie's asked your resources for legacy functional skills, paper-based practice paper no longer available on your site. Can this be fixed, please? We have just moved to a new website. All resources on there. You need to go to the resources dashboard and you'll be able to access all papers and sample paper on there. If you have any difficulty, just let us know and we'll ensure you get sent the right information. So Gina's asked, we currently use 4Skills Review. Will the 4Skills resource be refreshed? Obviously 4Skills are part of the NCFE group now, although they're still a separate company, but I can assure you 4Skills will be refreshing their content to fit in with the new criteria as well. And any more? Nina's asked, do the new functional skills reform apply to ICT? My apologies, I should have probably made this clear. The functional skills reform is only for English and maths. What happened to functional skills ICT, we don't know yet. It's valid until the legacy qualification expires. However, there is a consultation taking place at the moment looking at digital skills. I suspect somewhere along the line it'll morph into digital skills. Whether this sits in the functional skills family, we don't know that yet, unfortunately. When looking at apprenticeships, we still need to register people on functional skills. Is the GLH mentioned static, or is there any flexibility? For example, workshop and exams taken prior knowledge into account. That's from Marion. That's all still to be accounted for until the actual qualifications go get approved. I couldn't possibly come at this stage.
Sarah's asked about the upcoming functional skills days. So the ones in August and September are purely focused on the legacy qualification. There will be about 45 minutes allocated to looking at updates on the reform qualifications. As David mentioned before, though, a lot of the content that we're covering during these legacy qualifications is still going to be very, very relevant to the new qualifications. Closer to the time of the launch, so around about March time, once centres get a new sight of the new functional skills qualifications, we'll be doing a series of events around that time in March 2019.
Okay, we're overrun now, so we're going to have to wrap up. There are other questions on there, like Dean mentioned earlier. We will respond to each question in the emails that get sent round. But for now, I just want to thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate you getting involved, asking questions, taking part in the poll. We hope this session's been useful for you. And like I say, for more updates, we'll have a LinkedIn group for functional skills, NCFE functional skills group, where we post all the upcoming updates, any policy changes. Do feel free to join that. I'm more than happy for you to connect with me on LinkedIn, and I'm sure Dean is too, where we'll help. As a curriculum team, we will be contacting new centres, existing centres. We will be doing a lot of work to promote the functional skills reform. So do keep an eye out on NCFE. We are going to be helping you as much as possible to adapt to these new reforms. But for now, I just want to thank you for your time, and I wish you a good afternoon.
Thank you, everyone.